Maxmill, Revolution X, Revelation X, bringing you that live, outrageous as hell news as always. Live, loud, and outrageous as hell. Outrage. Uh-oh, he's talking about outrage. We better stop him. Nah, we ain't worried about that. So, I've looked at a lot of what's going on still today in the world. I'm looking at the way that we're moving. And here's what I see so far. Got it? Here's what I see. So there's a lot of people who are about this cash reevaluation, where they think that these countries that are becoming incredibly cash poor will have their dollars balanced out to a global currency initiative, basically. And in the concept of that, these Zimbon, that's a Zimbabwe dollar or bill, will be worth suddenly $50,000 or $100,000. So you can buy them on the internet at almost no cost whatsoever, so that when the reevaluation of currency occurs, you will suddenly hold currency that's worth much, much greater than it originally was. What is that word at? Appraised at? There we go. There's the proper word, appraised at. So what they're trying to get you to do is they're trying to get you to buy debt. They're trying to get you to buy. They're getting you to exchange your intelligence for the concept of a promise of monetary gain. They want you to be focused on this whole monetary situation more than anything else. They want you to believe that if you follow the proper course of action, then you can take back your sovereignty and become a free individual, a natural citizen of this country, a de jure citizen of this country, or a de jure member of this state. And then you can apply for access to your trust and to all the bonds that have been issued in your name. And they do this because they want people to be driven towards mammon. They want people to have a passion and a desire and a hunger for money. And they want us to believe that that is going to be the direction that will bring us peace on this earth. Now, in one concept, you can consider that if everybody was to suddenly become a de jure member of the state, that of the natural order of this nation that was originally established, we would, every single one person at one time, and they took back all their bonds and they took back all their trust, suddenly the government would become defect. It would no longer function. It would be broken. It would cease to exist because it wouldn't have the financial means to do so. The military, as it stands, is used in order to maintain balance and order in the world. But as time goes by, the rest of the world is beginning to realize that if they were to organize themselves and unite together, that they would easily be able to conquer that which is the American colonial democratic state. And the purpose in doing so would be to stop America from going out and expanding its powers any further and using its military might to steal and ravage the resources of other countries and imprison those places. See, we have a great number of American citizens here in this country crying out and saying that what's being done is horrible and it's terrorism. The people who are in Palestine deserve freedom and peace and should not be being genocided upon. And I agree. Just like the people who are the native inhabitants of this country, first and foremost, should not have been genocided upon. But did anything stop them from being genocided upon? No. Do you see the state that we live in now? Do you for one moment think that they created this enterprise and this experiment for any other purpose than to become wealthy, to develop an industry that would be used in order to enslave the rest of the free world and then turn upon itself so that the people of this world could then therefore be imprisoned, captured, and destroyed? See, we are foolish in thinking that we are any different than the occupiers that exist in the Middle East at this time. We can make a way forward. There is something we can do to change all this, but we have to consider the facts of what's really taking place. What you want to see happen is what happens, not what they want to see happen, not what they are pushing for, not what they have engineered, but for what you want to see happen with your kids, with your family. I tell you this not from some place of all high knowing. I tell you this because of my awareness of the things that are playing out in previous advanced time schedules. So, again, to consider, a lot of people are waiting for a reevaluation of currency. They think that suddenly we're going to get back our trust. What are trust? They're things that have been established in our name that rely upon the fact that each American person, if under the palpable, is worth $2.1 million. If you were to die out of the country, the United States government could request a amount of currency from that country in order to and you're insured. You are an insured asset. So when you go into another country and you die, our country can request $2.1 million from that country as a liability claim. So everybody who dies here can also request that. But you can also take that away from the government right now. You can go through the proper processes to denounce your citizenship and receive your $2.1 million, and you will no longer be eligible under the current laws and codes and statutes of the United States. If you commit a crime, you'll be put forward in front of a military tribunal, and they will determine your innocence or guilt in the nature of, did you make an act that was in declaration of a war or act of war against the United States? And if so, you will serve your time in a military prison until you're released back to yourself. But what these people think is that they can actually take those bonds that are traded. It used to be public information. Our bonds used to be traded by a company, and they could trade it over and over and over again until these bonds became worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You can easily look this up. His name is David Lester Straight. He's the one who is spoken out in the public, but his wife is also in prison for these same type of acts and activities. But once you access the money that is being traded through the trading company of your personal bond, then that sum becomes more than 2.1 million and can become up to the amount of 200 million, 500 million. I'm not making this up. This is the infinite amount of bonds that a single individual in the United States is worth. But if everybody did that all at one time, you would default the government, and then there would be no government. And that's okay too. But do you know what happens then? A vacuum would occur, and people would suddenly have to come in to fill that void. And people aren't ready for that. So we look at the nature of the events that are happening in the Middle East, and we say, oh, there's this occupation that's occurring. Yeah, that's what's occurring, but the same thing occurred here in the United States. We took all of the people here and we put them on reservations so that we could become resource rich off of their resources and off of their land. And the same thing is happening elsewhere in the world because there is an establishment of kingdoms that is taking place. Artificial intelligence has worked with the leading members of the scientific communities of each country, and they have determined that even though, like Sparta and Greece, who eventually were forced to go to war against each other, even though they were brother and sister nations, it is in the best interest of each nation in the world right now to isolate itself, build up its industry and its economy so that it can become isolated into itself and it can have all the resources that are necessary in order to perpetuate its civilization. And this is done so that we will stop interacting with each other. We will stop warring with each other because we cannot peacefully coexist. So we have to exist separate and isolated unto one another. And this is simply what Israel is attempting to do. You could say, oh, well, they are promised this land in this holy book. I'm telling you right now, give enough time and you'll find out all that's bullshit. And the truth is what your heart tells you. No man, no child shall suffer unless all are suffering. And we say, oh, well, who was Christ anyways? Did he come out of Palestine? Is that where this guy came from? So there's no difference in what is happening today. It is an absolute recreation of what had happened 2,000 years ago in Palestine during when the decree was made by the king that all newborn children shall die. This is not just newborn children. This is all people shall die. We're all supposed to be children anyways. And that doesn't say that the Israeli people have anything to really truly do with this, because they are there in Israel crying out and speaking out and protesting and making effort to position Netanyahu right now. They've been rioting and protesting for his removal. And simultaneously, as they're making effort in the courts to have him removed from power, all of a sudden this whole October 7th attack was orchestrated so that they could justify their military actions and advances against the Palestinian people. You can look into the footage, you can look at all of that. We all know exactly what it is, and they don't even like us talking about it because they consider this to be anti-Semitism just because you're telling the truth. So, the New World Order, what has happened with the New World Order over the course of the last 5 years? Well, we've lost a few key players, like the Bush family dynasty is starting to die off. We just lost the Soros, the Kinsinger. That's all great. These are great things. These people need to die. But the problem is that there are also other players to fill the vacuums and voids. Hillary Clinton has stepped up to do so. Larry Fink of BlackRock and the heads of Vanguard have all stepped up in order to ensure the safe and accurate transfer of power and resources to other individuals. So George Bush Sr., originally a Nazi, who stole the technology from the Tesla family to use in order to build up the military might against other countries and other worlds. See, there's also a breakaway civilization theory, or perspective that you have to take into consideration. The Germans didn't lose the Second World War. They moved from Argentina into Antarctica through the assistance of Dr. Mengele, and who was the head of the German cloning program, developed a means for cloning individuals with selective genetics. They moved this whole entire movement down into Antarctica and began to build and develop up their own industry and their own breakaway civilization where they could develop computer technologies and things of this nature. NASA, which is a cover-up for the true American space program and German space program that was developed, the Advanced Chemical Munitions and Explosives Company, ACME, and there's another company that was established in between that company. Well, the Germans have went to Antarctica in order to develop a cloning program, but they also produced through Joseph Goebbels a propaganda program in order to mind control and propagandize the malnourished public of the world. And they used, experiments. They went into other countries and took into other lesser third world populations to experiment upon, and they were able to figure out how to most efficiently utilize this mind control technology, bring it back into America, and pump it into our media, into our television, into our Disney films, into our all the bull crap that we are constantly entertained by. So what does this equate to? Well, the rest of the world isn't fully privileged to the knowledge of what is being developed through Antarctica, but some of the technology that you can actually view is things like the Hadron Collider. That is like the lowest level of the technology developed by Germany. Okay, so these people who developed the Hadron Collider for smashing particles together and forming micro black holes and opening wormholes into other dimensions so they can see the nature of reality and they can see the God particle and they can understand how energy works and how to manipulate energy in time and space. All this stuff is just the lowest level of the technology that the Germans have been manipulating and creating down in Antarctica. Don't for a second think that they don't have the most advanced quantum computers in the world down in Antarctica, because it's a low temperature environment, which is exactly what a quantum computer requires in order to function at its proper processing speeds and abilities. You need a low temperature environment. So going to Antarctica creates that environment for you naturally. You can build the most advanced supercomputers there, and you don't even have to worry about a constant flow of water to cool these things, because you have sub-zero Antarctic temperatures to protect them and keep them functioning at their peak abilities. So George Bush, who's a Nazi, he's actually the Sheriff family who worked under the Tesla company, not Elon Musk, but Nikola Tesla's company, had technology that was presented to Winston Churchill and Chamberlain and the rest of the head of the government of Europe, and said, hey, if you use this technology, Germany won't be able to fight or won't be able to expand their conquest of the world. And the heads of Europe said, no, we actually are promoting the conquest of Europe and the rest of the world by Germany. That's why we've been funding them. That's why we united the Prescott family. That's why we've done all that we've done that's why the Pope has blessed the German war machine. It's all public knowledge. It's all public information. But where does it get us to? Well, you have these individuals who are Zionists who have occupied the world, and they marry into families, and they marry into power, and they marry into money, and they take the very best of what we produce, and they use it to the best of their ability. They manipulate the entire world so that they can be the best at any field of technology that's emerging, so they can be aware of any possible loopholes that exist that could be used against them, and then therefore can be weaponized instead and used against us. Their technology is 3,000 years in advance to us. They've had a cell phone that they've had access to for 2,000 to 3,000 years. Imagine that. Why isn't there any cell phones hidden in the archaeological records? Why are we not digging up cell phones? Because this isn't the only place we exist. This is the only place where modern man from Earth exists. But why don't you go read the Jewish books? Why don't you go read these books and learn that Jews came from another planet? They say that themselves. They were seeded here, and as time goes by, they were supposed to establish themselves a a greater state here on this planet, the entirety of the planet. This is their planet. They were here to control it and to manage it, and we were all to be cattle under them to be used as needed. And this is in their own books. This isn't my knowledge. This is what they share daily. And that's fine. It doesn't make them bad people. I'm just saying what their knowledge is. You can also read that their numbers were supposed to be as great as the stars in the sky. Okay, the offspring of David and so on and so forth will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And there's no way that many people can fit on the face of the earth. So right there in its own definition, if you're really listening and paying attention, you'll see right there that is a suggestion that we are much greater than the numbers you see on here in this world. Now, what are they going to be doing with this computer? Why would they need this? Well, what is our world? Our world is a living organic structure, and it is moving through space and through time. And what if I was to tell you that you could direct it? What if I was to tell you that you could move it in a certain, you could move it as you willed? If you need to go here, you can move the Earth this way. But wouldn't that destroy and disrupt everything? Yeah, look at our planet. Look how messed up and disrupted and out of balance everything is starting to be. Well, how would you do that? Well, there's a number of ways that you could do that. You could transfer the gravitational poles in the planet by using large energy vectors and fields. You would transfer the energy from one side of the planet to the other side of the planet, and you would manipulate the wobble, and you would manipulate the way that it's functioning, and you would slowly begin to move it out of its natural orbit into a newer orbit. Wouldn't that just make us die? It depends. That's just one theory. What if you just move the whole body itself, like the whole solar system body? Why can't we do that? Well, if you're creating black holes, if you're able to look up on Google and say, can humans teleport anything? Yes, we can teleport things already. We can teleport one atom from here to there. How? Well, we can. Look it up. And that's our primitive technology. I just got done telling you they're 3,000 years advanced compared to our primitive technology. So, what is the Mandela effect? Well, one person wants to say that the Mandela effect is simply a rebranding process in order to cover up mistakes and other things that have occurred throughout our history with brands that want to have a good image for the future, because these brands are only going to get bigger and more powerful. That's one perspective on what the Mandela effect is. Another perspective on the Mandela effect is that it's somebody changing the computer code that makes up the very fabric of reality, and they have failed or they made a mistake somewhere along the line, and certain artifacts are changing because the computer code is not being preserved to the integrity that it was once written at. How does that happen? We are living in a complete simulation, and you can go anywhere in that simulation because it's a digital simulation. We're not alive. This isn't real. That's what the greatest trick of the devil was, to convince us that we weren't real or that he wasn't real. Isn't that a wonderful way to get people thinking that if this is the truth, that is nothing greater than the devil doing it? So if they are able to actually manipulate this whole entire matrix and change code and change things in and out of it, that would be a really reasonable explanation for why these things are appearing and have been written out of history. But therefore, the Bible also speaks of the matrix, and wouldn't it be safe to say that God created all this, and he created it in a number of days, and that is a creation that God made manifest? So if anything that God made manifest, can it be unmade? Can it be changed or manipulated? Can't something perhaps, maybe that's not the greatest technology available in existence. Maybe that's just the level of technology that is the greatest level of technology that we're capable of understanding and perceiving. So what if God isn't the only thing that can create or change things? What if we one day can create or change things? What if you have 1,000 people sitting in a room and they all have one subconscious suggestion, blue, 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 100,000 people all thinking blue, and there's a recording device in the room. And that recording device can be affected by those 100,000 people thinking blue, 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 blue. Maybe the words blue will appear on the recording device. Maybe under the proper observational tools, you'll see a blue light appear in the recording itself. And I'm not making this up. Google it. Can you affect recording devices through group thinking? Yes, you can. So that's another proof that we, through our thought or our word, can manifest destiny or reality around us. The same thing that God did in forming the universe. So does that mean that that's God's greatest gift or ability? We don't speak on what God's greatest gift or ability is, but what we do know is that God can do greater things than even that. God can recreate all of it. He can create something from absolutely nothing. Now there's these other things out there that perhaps have learned to create something different out of this something that has already been created. So how is it that we look at our world and say, well, there's no way that the Earth can move because the sun is fixed, our galaxy is fixed? No, it's all moving very, very fast, right? But space is so big that even this lifetime of movement, 100 years of movement in space is like moving nothing at all. But what if we move the space around us? What if we change everything? What if we turn ourselves into a entangled particle somehow and move us swiftly and the space around us more efficiently and quickly? There's so much to it because we don't understand the nature of our experience. We only understand what we've been told, what we've been taught, and what we can prove with our own eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and hands. And one of those things that are really hard to prove is time. Just because we don't think that people can go back in time, which clearly I promise you they can, why would we be willing to think that a civilization that has been hiding itself from Earth for 3,000 years, it has its own planet, but it's just hiding behind the sun so we can never see it. But 3,000 years ago, it was the year 2000 for them. And they were creating cell phones, and they were creating rocket ships and plasma TVs. And as they advanced their technologies, they began to send them to Earth. And then they began to have contact with Earth's governments. And Earth's government said, well, we can't really stop you, but we have to keep this silent because our people, the public of the world, will begin to think that there should be free access to these technologies that provide zero energy. There should be no cost of living. This is your planet equally to everyone else's. You shouldn't have to worry about where you're going to live. You should be able to take resources from a store you should be able to take resources from a forest and build a home. And then you should be able to make some food and sell the food and make some money and buy a better home out of better resources. But in an even more balanced world, we wouldn't even have to worry about that. Everybody would be living in such balance with each other that we would literally be able to go in, find a land that speaks to us, claim the land, build a home on it, access free energy, because the whole world should be fucking free. But we refuse to be free because we'd rather live in a state of serfdom. And that is the greatest concern, is that we, instead of us rising up and telling the governments that we don't want to live as slaves, because we can figure that if everybody has an equal share to all things, and you still can build your industry and you can build your corporation, that's fine. And I can be nothing and I can die off, or I can be a worker, or I can build my own industry, or I can build my own products, or I can build my own life, and I can just go to the great wealth and resources that exist. People are so lazy and stupid, they don't make any effort anyways. So in that consideration, if I was to go out and try to, if suddenly I went out and everybody had free access to everything, you think people would just take it over? Like, just take it. How many cell phones do you think you really need? How many TVs do you think you really need? We produce more of these things than anybody could actually need. So apart from the great rush of sudden Black Fridays, everything's free and available, people would either want to live a life of laziness and excess and want everything to be done for them, or they would eventually figure out that, hey, everything's being provided for me, now let's see what I can build. Lady Freak says, have you been checking out the SDGs? The Focus 2030 site has a countdown at the bottom of the page. I believe it has everything to do with the 7-year covenant mentioned in Daniel 27. Yeah, the 7-year Jubilee. I have not been paying attention to that site. You're welcome to link me. I'll be happy to review it. If I'm not quite sure, I don't think it was any in relationship to any videos I was sent or anything by you, but we exist in the state that we exist in because we believe in this scarcity, the illusion of scarcity, the illusion of consumerism, the illusion of I have to have more so that you can have less, so that then there's a little left over for the next person. We don't live in any balance. We don't educate ourselves. The rest of the world is not like America. It's very different. It has its problems. It has its shortcomings, but there's a lot more balance. You can go to other places in the world, and for $3 US, you can live for 3 days, $1 a day. How? Well, let's say it's the right time of year. You go in there and you're just buying food. Food doesn't cost it like it does in America. What we do in America is absolutely an exploitation and a molestation and a perversion of the natural state of order. And we do it so that we force individuals into a constant rat race and a push for superiority or supremacy in a consumer-based existence. I'm greater, I'm more famous, I'm more like I have more followers, I have more likes, I have more. We are, and then we're the last generation that is alive, that was born before the internet took over everything. Now every generation that comes next will not have any understanding of what's going on except for the internet, what they're told, what their cell phones. That we live in a time where we were raised by people who had no internet, and we were given internet, and we were given this world of things, and our communication systems have broken down so severely. But now we're learning to turn it around. We're learning to heal. We're learning to use the teachers on the World Wide Web. We're learning to use the counselors. We're learning to use the spiritual guidance. We're learning to listen to the Word and have people who are, breaking it down and giving us the message that's contained within the Word, so that we can better manage our lives. We are learning to protect our children from these technologies, but we're also learning how these technologies have been used to prey upon people. We're learning how big of an industry the sex trafficking industry is. And we're also beginning to learn that we possess power. We see in the news feeds on social media, other members of other farmers from other governments and other countries are going out and dumping manure and sewage in the city halls and in the public buildings and in the public squares of these other countries, where where their authority is being diminished, where the farmers' rights to grow and to manage their crops and to do with them what they wish is all being disrupted. There is a point to all of this. See, they know things well in advance, and it's been kind of the game of all the world leaders for all of time. If we know when the eclipses are, we can scare the people into doing what we say. Because if they don't do what we say, we will not let the sun be turned back on, and then they will all die. It's kind of similar, but only a little bit darker, because they're actually destroying the crops. They're actually making it so that we're losing our relationships with other countries. Do you know that they're right now issuing a warning for all U.S. citizens everywhere in the world to return home and to not associate with people of other countries? Like, it's getting to a point where everything that we've known, we can say, oh, well, this is the Lord's time. Everything's coming together, and this is the Enochian time and the time of the angels, and it's all coming together as it's been prophesied in the Bible. But there's also staged agent provocateurs who want the whole world to look like it's coming into that period where things are beginning to come to the way they would as promised in the Bible. And in reality, that could just be a way to get a lot of people to be willing participants of this entire scenario. I'm not saying that we're not coming to a different time. We absolutely are. I mean, if anything we were coming to right now, we're literally coming to the time of Christ. Like, you mentioned Daniel, right? It is extremely difficult to be a follower of Jesus Christ, a true Christian, with all the false prophets and lukewarm members, all of the corruption and the perversion of the Holy Bible, etc. I absolutely agree. I completely agree. It is a very difficult process. And it's all being rapidly, the timeline of these things is being rapidly increased. Israel has their agendas with the red heifers, with the temple, but I truly believe that they know that we're not there yet. Now, are we doomed for a meteor impact on January 14th of 20 whatever? I don't know. Leak Project, he put out a funny little video saying, oh, January 14th, Apophis will hit Earth of 2025 or 2027 or something like that. But they are also aware of these things. They have systems where they know exactly what comes and how it happens, and the amount of damage it's going to do, and the level of destruction and death that will be a direct result of it, right? But they also right, have to. I was reading your thought. I have thought on that as well. Because they are aware of these things, they can prepare for them in advance, and they would not tell the public. And that could be what they were referring to with the whole climate crisis scenario. They know exactly what is preparing to play out, and they want to tell us, oh, it's just God. That was my chain of thought right there. Train of thought. It could just be God. He's coming to pour his wrath upon the earth, and all of the disbelievers and sinners of the world shall be judged. Actually, it's just a meteor going to fuck us up and wipe out like 85% of the population, 40% of the wildlife. and it happens every 10 to 15 or 25,000 years, and it's going to happen, and we're going to call it the devil. But that doesn't mean that the devil, it doesn't exist and isn't going to end this system one day, as through the permission that God has given. And yes, in this movie, Leave the World Behind, there's a very important point there. Right now, we have the Bill Gates Foundation, who have vaccinated 100 to 300,000 wildlife animals in the United States. And now, all of a sudden, this zombie deer virus is popping up in many states. And what was the thing in Leave the World Behind? Remember the deers out in the trees, acting all weird? Remember that? Exactly. So, they do propagandize us. They do put this shit in front of us. Yes, don't look up with A-list actors. Leonardo DiCaprio, in a real weird role for him, right? Not looking very charming, not looking very, A-list actress, right? With the girl from the Hunger Games. I always forget her name, but it's always right there on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember it forever for some reason. But look at inside of the movie Leave the World Behind, the deers. It also has a date. The date for Leave the World Behind is like September 2024. September 17th, 2024 is the date. It also lines up with a perfect lunar eclipse, which is the way the movie begins. But see, a lot of people are trying to say Obama is a white hat now. Now Obama's a good guy. Listen, I've been telling you guys the whole story the whole fucking time. Tom Morello's dad, he's a guitar player raised against the machine. He was one of the head oil company members, managers in Kenya. Same exact place or if Kenya, Liberia, wherever, I can't remember the exact second, but I think it's Kenya. The exact place where Obama came from. Obama's dad is like Barry Soetoro. He's Barry Soetoro Jr. His mom was a member of the Black Panther Party. His uncle is Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld. I always forget which one because it's been 15 years since I've seen the cover of Time magazine where I learned it. But he was like smoking a cigarette and had a Black Panther hat on. Okay, is he a Black Panther? What is a Black Panther? Look, for a long time, they tried to make it against race. It's not race, it's class. We're not engaged in race war, we're engaged in class warfare. Jennifer Lawrence, correct. And, come on, where was I? I read the comment, threw me off. And Obama is not, Tom Morello's father was the head of a oil company in Kenya. And at the same, around that same time, Barack Obama's father was assassinated in a political coup in Kenya and some shit, right? He was killed. That's why Barack had to go back and visit his father's grave. Barack has stepbrothers who straight tell everything that Obama's about, and about Big Mike, and about all the things that Barack is, and who his real alliances are with, and what he's really building towards and planning. Yes, Barack was set up to help destroy America, and anybody who thinks America is bad and corrupt and evil would say, oh, that's the activity of a white hat, right? But that's not what's happening. See, a real white hat would set up the destruction of America for the rebirth of America. He's not doing that. He's setting up the destruction for America so that the rest of the world can consume America and America can die. Okay, that doesn't make him a white hat. Why? Because America's always been bad. It's always been evil. It's always been corrupt. It's always been going out there and destroying other countries and invading countries and using its military power to topple governments and make regime changes. So is that how Obama's a white hat? Because he's going to destroy America all the way? Because literally that's what he's trying to do. Because that's what he was engineered and programmed and taught to do. He's literally like a test tube baby grown for that purpose. Not grown in a test tube, but for the fucking all points and purposes, yes. There's even reasons to think that if he doesn't possess a direct bloodline descendancy to a pharaoh from Egypt, that whoever's baby was Barry Soetoro's baby and the nephew of Dick Cheney or Donald Rumsfeld, that dude was captured in Chicago 5 years before he was to run for president. He was either killed or completely fucking taken over, mind controlled, brainwashed. Another person took over his body or whatever. I mean, all of his boyfriends, the crackheads that he smoked drugs with, everybody's come out. Tucker Carlson has said it. Tucker Carlson is CIA. His family is CIA. Julian Assange's family are emerald mine owners and ruby mine owners from Africa, and he is also big government, and there is no limit to. There is a reason why he bought Twitter, because $40 billion to control the public narrative and to know what everybody's thinking when you're building an artificial intelligence system. And now you have a Twitter, all of Twitter's collected data that it's always built ever. Now you can use that to program your future AI candidates and all this shit. It's no joke. This is exactly how they've built this reality, because they've had thousands of years to refine the process. They already did it on their planet. Their planet's fucked up. There's no human rights. There's no age of consent. You cannot say no. Slavery is constant. Everything is slavery. But it's slavery through conscription. It's slavery through consumerism. It's slavery through forcing labor. It's slavery through sexual control. And there's no limit to the lifespans that they can live because they're 3,000 years advanced of us. So they've gotten bored of their fucking game on their planet, and they come here to play a new game, and the game is destroy all humans. And what means? Because we actually possess an ability that far exceeds all of theirs, but it's not been unlocked yet because we don't move ourselves, we don't guide ourselves, we don't do anything hardly for ourselves. We've been allowed ourselves to become atrophied and asleep, and all of our psychic abilities and our power of vibration and our love and our ability to war and to combat and to do so for the purpose of making, warring against our enemies and the violent forces that exist out in nature. But these things are all coming home, and it's all going to come together really quickly. Excuse me. It's all going to come together really quickly as we begin to see what our reality really consists of and is made out of. The government, yep, exactly. And with another note about Terminator, the movie came out in 1984, not the book, but the movie, and it says in 40 years, which is 2024, Skynet takes over. In the movie Terminator Part 1 with, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the early one with Sarah Connor and John Connor and back in time traveling. That movie was made in 84, and they said in 40 years Skynet will take over. It's 2024 now. So, but the other thing is that this might not be our true state of reality. Maybe somebody built an ancestral simulation to show us where we messed up, but maybe not. And what we really should focus on is that it's not, and that what we have to do is not be lazy and teach our children how this is all going to go down. Get these cell phones out of their hand and put a shovel in their hand and put them outside to go and dig some dirt, get their feet in the mud so they can reground. So we have to pass legislation to immediately stop these chemtrails. We have to pass legislation to immediately ban these GMO products in the schools and inside the prisons. We have to immediately pass legislation to reevaluate our prison system and to build a prison system that will be for the bettering and the functionality of humans. And this isn't because I went to jail. I don't care about that. I sat in a locked box for 13 months, solitary confinement for 13 months when I went to jail. I got my rehabilitation. Trust me. I'm talking about everybody else who has to live there now, who come out worse than they went in, who have less hope and less beliefs in themselves and less confidence in their ability to navigate this world when they get out, because they've been railroaded through school into the prison system for life. Bet the barium and aluminum is all Skynet. Absolutely. Do you know that we launched 500,000 or a million minuscule needles into the sky back in like the 1920s because we were trying to figure out another way to transfer radio communication signals, but now we use flak, which instead of little needles, we use glitter. Glitter is the number one person who purchases glitter in the United States is classified. The person who purchases the most glitter in the United States is classified. The purpose for what they purchase this glitter for is classified. There are 3 manufacturers of true glitter in the whole world. All the rest of the glitter you see from China is all plastic. Real glitter is made out of metal shavings, colored metal shavings. And when launched into the stratosphere, can be used for the purpose of radio imagery, bouncing off radio imaging signals onto the planet so that they can look for resources, mine for minerals and things of that nature. They can also do Project Bluebeam. They can also do voice to cranium technology. They can also send radio signals across the sky. They can also manipulate the weather. They can also block out radar. That's what flak is. It's microscopic metal. And the purpose, these things are completely classified. But that's what they're doing to our environment. And the whole story of did they destroy the sun, like in the Matrix? The Matrix and the Terminator are alleged to be one story, right? That somewhere along the Terminator process, we got launched into we got launched into a Matrix, and then Neo came along to break us out of that. And the whole alien things, yes, there are countless life forms in this universe, countless. But it doesn't mean that they don't want us to be controlled into thinking like the life forms that we're going to be meeting or introduced to soon are either violent or nefarious or have, evil intentions for us. And because how best to mask the evil intentions of our government than to say it's some evil alien outside entity doing it and not our own government. So now they could literally pretend to be aliens and imprison us all and then fight for our freedom when they're fighting themselves and they're using us as casualties. Space Force One. So all this brought into consideration. Where does that put the United States in the next 20 or 30 years? It truly depends on you. See, if we're smart, we will fight and we will stand up for our freedom and our sovereignty, and we will tell the rest of the world as a singular, unified voice, we're done with war. We're done with any type of act of hate or violence that you wish to perpetrate against any other free country. If that's what you wish to do, then you can speak to God in regards to that, but you take one step over our border and we will nuke the whole world. Oh, great. Now we sound like it's the Zionists with the Samson option, see? But there's a difference in our intent. We're not out there. We would no longer be out there causing chaos. See, China is very much already doing that. Allegedly, they put up a wall a long time ago, and they're not very much into expanding. But now it's in their best interest because of the debt that has been procured by the Americans to start buying back through the lands that they'd have access to purchase. They're buying out their debt. They're getting their pay because who knows how this country will end up? Who knows what will happen to this place? And for Washington, D.C., that's up in the northeastern section of the country, right? Right? They don't know how to manage this country. So it's obviously set up to fail. You have a bunch of micro-governments all over the country that relay the message to the northeastern, Washington, D.C., private entity that it is. But you think that anything is done about that? Look at the places furthest away from D.C. How wrecked are they? Portland, Los Angeles, right? How destroyed are they becoming? Because the messages aren't getting through. And it doesn't matter to them. And it doesn't make any difference to them. So they're going to run things the way they wish to. And that is right into the ground. So it doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of alien life forms out there who would wish to give us technology and help us advance our civilization. But our government has no interest in that. Because a civilization that's advanced has more authority and more power to direct and guide itself. And the government wants less people so that they have less authority to guide themselves and their lives. What's up, Fire Medic? Good to have you here. Pleasure to see you. Thank you for all your work. So, yes, there will be a Project Bluebeam. But it's to cover up the truth about the people who are trying to assist us and aid us because our government is truly evil. You could talk to President Dwight Eisenhower's great-granddaughter, Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, and she will tell you that she was brought into a Mars reproduction program where you go to Mars and you get laid and you have babies and you help repopulate the planet. Well, what is Elon Musk trying to do? He's trying to get to Mars and he keeps telling everybody they have to repopulate the planet. Well, I've been telling everybody about Laura Magdalene Eisenhower for like 8 years and how she was taken to Mars to help repopulate the planet. Do you understand that they are trying to repopulate their people, their population? Now, Team Human. Elon Musk says he's on Team Human, Team Humanity. Is that because he wants to be able to be the King Musk, the King Deer Piss of this planet, and he wants to control it and steward it into the future? Or is it just more propaganda? I think that it's a healthy mix of both. I think that if he thinks that we repopulate ourselves and we're already listening to him, so we're making babies and we're doing what Elon Musk says, and he's trying to get people back to Mars, and we already have the first candidate for who goes back to Mars, the first girl who's going to go to Mars and never come back again. She's Mars's first citizen. She's the new Eve of Mars, right? You can Google her too. She's like 17 or 18 years old. She's super fucking smart, speaks like 5 languages, has an IQ of like 180. She has like 5 engineering degrees. She's fucking brilliant, right? He is not. He wants babies for demon hosts. I agree. That is highly probable because see the whole The whole Neuralink to what? AI, right? What is AI? AI is older than we are. Who is in control of AI? Once you're on the worldwide AI web, can you be manipulated and you're made into a better host for occupation by the Avatar program that does exist on the further planets in our system? Mars has humans or has beings. The further you go out, they become less like beings and more like machines. So, I believe that is very reasonable to consider such. She said they want us. They bring in all of our most elite children and people from our Earth, and they take them to Mars for 4 to 5 years, and they have offspring, and then they come back to Earth, and that's the way it goes. But there's Elon Musk saying, have babies, have babies, have babies, and let's go to Mars. That's the same thing. Why would she be saying the exact same thing he is if it's not true? But she says that they have no rights on Mars. So you have no right of consent. There's no age of consent. There's no, I can't tell you no. If you can purchase whoever you want to. And now, there's no rights. You have no rights, no freedoms, no rights. No, you can't express yourself. You can't say what you want to. It's literally all masculine brain thinking that occupies Mars. Why can't we see that when we look up at Mars with a telescope, Mr. Douglas? Because our entire sky is alleged to be a plasma field that's like X amount thick. So when you think you see Mars and you see Mars's little moon going around it, that's all projection. That's all the most fucking advanced 10K fucking imagery you're ever going to see in the world. And it looks like it's really far because our atmosphere is really big. And it's all about forced perspective. We think we're seeing out of our planet into another planet, okay? But it's all projected. You can, it's hard because some of the telescopes have digital feeds, and you're going to see a scan line on videos of the moon, right? And I would like to say, well, that kind of supports my idea about it all being a screen. But some telescopes have they have a digital screen that's looking through the telescope, so you're seeing digitally what you would normally see with your eye there. And it has a scan. When you're looking at a moon, you'll see a scan line go down the moon. But that's been captured by so many different things that it's almost like, what the fuck am I actually seeing? How am I seeing a scan line going down 50 different feeds of the moon? A scan line, like a pixel line, and then it refreshes. When we get a bad signal on our TV back in the 80s and 90s, remember when I used to do that thing? The moon does the same exact thing. So I know it's crazy. Oh, well, we've landed on there. You have. Tell me all about it, please. So this is why I say that our reality, we don't understand the nature of our reality, but we're getting closer and closer to it, and they don't like that either. Every time we get that close to understanding the nature of our reality, they do something to destroy our progress. It's in the movie, The Secret History of Humanity, on the Spirit Science channel on YouTube. It's at the 8 or 10 minute mark. Yeah, I have to remember all this shit so I can tell people later. And it shows us starting to unlock the secrets of reality and of our universe. And then all of a sudden, all of our plans and everything are all wrote out on the table. And then all of a sudden, war is declared. Bam. Put all of our notes away. Put all of our discoveries away. Put a halt to progress. It's time to go and fight for no reason again. It's time to go and commit senseless bloodshed and atrocities against innocent humanity so that we can be distracted and diverted from our efforts and our progress. They don't want us reawakening. See, that goes right into the book, The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life by Drew Navallo Melchizedek, where we were an advanced race of beings and we got knocked off of our evolutionary chain by the Zionist Martians who came from Mars, and they opened up a hole in our planet where they put a synthetic ancient nuclear reactor, and when they did that, it tore a wormhole through the dimensions into the lowest dimension of existence, where God speaks in the Bible of the gnashing of the teeth. And these things escaped into our reality. This is all written by other people, many other people. And these entities were free to roam in our planet, and they possessed a great number of people, and they caused people to do horrible, terrible things, and it changed our whole nature. And then the Galactic Federation allegedly came, and they put as many 2/3 of the disembodied souls, or gnashers of the teeth, back into the hole from whence they came, and they sealed it, and they put a protection on people and gave them an ability through God's knowledge how to exorcise these disembodied spirits from our bodies. But some of us can't exorcise them. Some of us love to be possessed by these things. And so this was all taught to us by the ancient, like in the book, Junavala Melchizedek's The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life. And it's also kind of covered in the Spirit Science book. I got to check my time, make sure I got battery life. Yep. So those things having been considered, right? That's where we find our self, is that the Zionists, for now, want to control the portion of the Middle East up to Egypt. They're going to take over those countries that are limiting their expansion, and when they've achieved their state that they need, they will be satisfied. And they know how time works, so they know how much time it will take for them to destroy America and destroy China and destroy Russia through their technology. And all they need to make sure is that they ensure that they build their empire right now. There's no greater thing than to what needs to be built, so that they can ensure that they have time to carry out the rest of their game plan and their act, the rest of their war campaign. Do you know what Mossad's motto is for war? Declare war, but through deception. War against all, but by means of deception. To war against all, but by means of deception. And that's where they are. They can say, "Oh, we want nothing more than the land that we were promised in our great Torah." That was my Benjamin Netanyahu impersonation. I know I nailed it. Okay? We want nothing more than our great land as promised by our incredible Torah. These terrorists can no longer be permitted to invade our raves where our young, beautiful, half-dressed daughters are frolicking their bodies and gyrating in such ways. Alright? I'm sorry. I have to have humor, alright? I fail to exist in my natural form. Bibi. Fucking booby-ass Bibi Netanyahu. So, it's already been revealed by the helicopter pilots that these people are the ones that the Israeli soldiers are responsible for the vast majority of deaths of the Israeli citizens that occurred that day. I've known this was coming. I've been telling people about this for years and years. So, what should the Palestinians do? Leave. If they want to live and they want to survive this, they should leave. They should flee, because land has no value if you can't live on it. If you're dead, your land is valueless, at least to you, because you're dead. And that's all that they have there is death. There's nothing that's going to come for them. And why? Because it's in part to see how evil we can be. It's somehow in the nature of our universe that that nature itself, it doesn't mind the suffering. Yes, hurt each other, maim each other, because I know that I am so great that after all of your harm has befallen one another, I can take away all that pain and all that suffering and make it like it never existed in the first place. But what I will make sure you hold on to forever and ever is your shame, and that you are a failure, and that you have failed your test for standing up against those who are defenseless and powerless. Have you seen the new Exorcist movie? Like, I know that's not up your field, right? But in the middle of the daytime, like 11 a.m., put that shit on and watch it. Because guess what the movie's about? The whole movie's about a test of faith and love and compassion, and not sacrificing somebody else's love and faith and weakness. That's what the whole movie is about. That's correct. God knew that. God was well aware of that. And it's not Israel. It's the Zionists occupying Israel. That is one of the hardest things to do. But if nothing else can be done, take away the word Israel and make it the Zionist occupiers of Israel. Because the people of Israel are just as upset as we are about what's happening. Not all of them, but a large percentage of them are just as upset about what is happening as we are about what has happened to the natives, or what is being done to our country, and how our children are being manipulated and exploited and harmed. And they are very upset. They are very, very grieved by this. But they are also just subjects to their government, and they fear speaking up because they fear being ridiculed. And as they are told, if you think that you can speak up and try to defend the Palestinians, then you leave and you join them. That's the reality of it. They are told, you are no longer welcomed. You are them. You speak out against your own people. You are nothing more than a self-hating individual, and you should be exiled to go and spend the rest of your days with them, where you will be murdered as well. So where does that leave us in the United States? Where does that leave us? Well, we're a badass motherfucking servant of God. At least we were supposed to be. We are supposed to be a mighty, mighty force of God. We are supposed to be a mighty, mighty force of God. What are we? We are a mighty force of God. There are men and women who are leaving the United States to go to Palestine and defend the people of Gaza. This is an act of terrorism and a crime. And they will be punished if they are found, and murdered if they are found in the process. But we were supposed to be mean fucking badass motherfucking servants of God. And we fall short because we have fear. And they are taking advantage of that time of our fear to swiftly move everything into position, to execute activities and programs and legislation and so on and so forth that is undermining our freedoms and our authority and our ability to make a difference when that time comes. When we finally see it's a frog in the pot, who never knows that the water's getting hotter and will soon be found being boiled alive. The same thing was done to the Jews, and that's what they want, is to think that if the incremental changes are not going to be drastic enough to really affect our lives, and that we still have authority, but in fact we are losing that authority, and they're doing the exact same thing to Mars that they did to us. There is no difference to what they are trying to create here in our world as to what's already been created on Mars. Think about what I've told you. You have no rights of consent. There's no age. You can't protect your children. They're not your children. They're the states. There is no family like authority on Mars. But what do they look like they're trying to do with our schools here? What do they look like they're trying to do with our children here? It's the exact same thing. And people are going to say, well, I just can't buy that. Don't buy it. Just have faith that if I'm wrong, you are at least aware that they have no other desire but to do that to us here as well. And so if it's not being done to Mars, then it's just being done here, and it's being done. That is the desired outcome. So that they can take your kids and they can mass produce them. If they find a perfect, beautiful girl, every elite's going to want one of them. I'm not joking. You have to mix between what Donald Marshall said and the elites and the cloning centers and the celebrity cloning centers where they can clone Britney Spears, and you can do any horrible deed you wish to do to her for a price. And it will be her thoughts and her emotions thinking that it's being done to her. You wonder why Britney Spears is so fucked up? It's because when you're in the REM state of sleep consciousness is when they are active at these centers, and the torturing is occurring because they wirelessly, through the avatar technology, transfer the person's subconscious mind into the cloned body while they are in a state of REM sleep for either the purpose of manipulation or exploitation. And you're like, how is that real? Listen to Donald Marshall's original presentation, and then look at Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew and every single thing else that's come out since Donald Marshall's original presentation, and you will see that he nailed all of it way in advance. I will be back. Thank you.